now. I assume she is online.
I am here.
Okay, great. I'd like to introduce you, Amy. Amy has been a speaker with us several times and has always been well received by our audience. Amy is the Director of Education for Alzheimer's San Diego. She's had over 20 years of involvement in long-term care, in care management, dementia care, community education, and so forth. She's on the board of directors for the National Academy of Certified Care Managers. She's just really an expert in this area, and we're thrilled that she's back with us this year, and her topic is maintaining your brain health. And Amy, I'd like to turn it over and thank you for your participation. Turn it over to you now.
Great, thank you so much. Is my screen sharing working? Everyone can see that slide?
It is. We got it up.
Okay, and how's my audio? Everyone, you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I think the way that this program today is gonna go is that I will just go straight through the material that I intended to cover, and you all are welcome to submit questions. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. Dick and Jim, you're welcome to submit questions via chat as we go, or I think we're gonna stop and do some questions verbally at the end. Does that sound right?
That's right.
Okay. Great. Well, I have been in the meeting here for a few minutes and kind of looking around at all your screens. I see some familiar faces. It's nice to see some familiar folks and also to meet a few new ones as well. So thank you again, Dick, for the invitation to come and join you here today. So my topic is that of maintaining your brain health. And of course, I'm a social worker, I'm a public health worker, and I work for Alzheimer's San Diego. So when I talk about maintaining your brain health, that's a very broad topic. I'm talking specifically here today about how to reduce the likelihood of experiencing dementia, of course. So here's what I'm intending to cover. I'll talk first about normal age-related changes that you should expect to see in terms of memory and cognitive function as we grow older. Then we'll talk about how that's different from the symptoms of dementia, what the risk factors are, and then focus primarily here on what we can do to reduce personal risk. So very important when we're talking about the topic of brain health and memory to just put it out there that if you're noticing changes to your memory, changes in how you're thinking, changes in how you process information, this is totally normal, and this is not something we absolutely have to panic and worry about. Our brain changes as we age, just like every other part of our body does. It just isn't right out there in front of us for all the world to see. We don't notice it the way we notice our knees and our skin and our hair, you know, all these other parts of our bodies that are aging at the same rate. Your brain's aging too. So it is normal to experience some physical changes. The brain does shrink a bit as we age. We have a natural loss of volume. Some of that is plain old loss of brain cells. That's a normal process. We see less connectivity between the neurons, the nerve endings that are at the ends of our brain cells. Neurons connecting with each other. This is a synapse. This is the basis of everything your brain does. When you pull up a memory, when you experience an emotion, when you use your hands to pick up a glass of water, right? Everything happens because of the connectivity between these billions of neurons that we've got. There is less connectivity between those neurons as we age. That's a normal process. We will see reduced blood flowing to the brain. Your brain is the biggest user of your body's blood supply. I think it's about a quarter or so of every time your heart is pumping blood out, right, through the vasculature, your brain is using about a quarter of it. Well, your cardiovascular system is becoming less efficient as you age, and so there's less blood flowing to your brain. So all of that has some consequences. This is inevitable. This is nothing that we need to worry about. There are some cognitive changes we'll notice. Memory decline, that is mild, meaning we'll talk about the difference between mild and not mild, but it's just sort of a nuisance. It's an annoyance, but it's not actually a functional impairment, right? If, for example, my name was not on the screen right now, it's one of the beauties of Zoom, you can't forget my name. So my example is a harder one, but if my name wasn't right there in front of me, right, most of you heard my name a few minutes ago, maybe you saw it in the announcement, but if you'd already forgotten my name, or tomorrow someone asked you, who was that came from Alzheimer's San Diego and talked about brain health, if you couldn't remember, this would not be something significant for anyone to worry about. Would you have remembered it when you were in your 20s or 30s? Probably, right? But it's not an important detail. So it's mild memory decline. It's normal. That is a normal consequence of these physiological changes that we experience. It's harder for us to control and maintain our attention as we get older. Many of you may have noticed, I feel this already when I'm driving a car. When I don't know where I am, I have to turn the radio down. Right? Why is that? It doesn't really make any sense. I can see just as well with the radio on or off, but I need to focus my attention more. I need less distraction, right? That is normal. When I was in my 20s, I could have a car full of people and a loud radio and still kind of find my way around and navigate. Now, everybody needs to be quiet and let me think, right? Let me focus. That's a normal part of aging. We process information more slowly, meaning we take in information and retain it and learn how to use it more slowly. I love, Cynthia, your discussion about all of us adapting to Zoom is really relevant to this conversation here today. First, I'll just say that while, yes, there's probably some negative consequences in terms of our eyesight and headaches and other things related to all of this screen time, there's probably also some serious brain health benefit to all of us having to learn all this new technology and figure it out so quickly on the fly. But we do learn things more slowly. Those college kids picking up Zoom and using it for the first time, they're gonna grasp it faster. It's not necessarily because they're digitally native, it's just because their brains process information more quickly. But when your brain is healthy, you absolutely can and will continue to learn and grow and develop through the end of your life, as I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone. So lots of different things will affect our overall health, including our brain health as we age, right? There's certainly our genetics play a role, what disease risk factors we inherited from our parents or we've inherited through lifestyle or our environment, right? The culture that we live in. We don't happen to live in a particularly age-friendly culture here in the United States. We should, we don't yet. We don't look upon aging as a positive thing. We sort of value youth here in the United States in our particular culture. That's not universally true, right? So people who age in environments where growing older is revered and honored and a positive experience, they have a different experience of aging. So we've got some work to do here, but that's a whole other lecture. You can come back and invite me to talk about that sometime. The kind of work that you did, how much education you have, these things will also affect how you're going to age. I'll talk a bit about this as we go along. Most of that we can't do much about by middle age, but lifestyle and controllable factors we can do a lot about. So there's the overall kind of what we call the numbers. I'm not going to focus too heavily on these items here today because I know while they may not be things that are easy for us to address, affordable for us to address, most of us know that we need to be taking care of these things, right? Maintaining a healthy blood cholesterol levels, our weight or our body mass index, not smoking, managing our mental health, and addressing sensory loss. This is getting more and more attention in terms of the connection between both vision loss and specifically hearing loss and our overall health as we age. But when it comes to brain health specifically, here's what the research it focuses on. Here's what the research tells us has a significant impact on how our brain's going to do as we get older. Getting plenty of exercise, eating a healthy diet, staying intellectually active, staying socially connected, and getting plenty of sleep. So that's what I'll be focusing on primarily here today. As I said before, I work for Alzheimer's San Diego. The work that we do is focused primarily on reducing the risk of developing Alzheimer's and other types of dementia and living well with these conditions, right? Supporting people with a new diagnosis and supporting those who support that and the care partners. I talk about maintaining your brain health. I'm primarily talking about doing what we can to reduce the likelihood of developing dementia. So what does that mean exactly? Just a quick point of clarification. Dementia is not an actual disease. Dementia is the word that we use to describe this whole host of symptoms I'm going to talk you through. Dementia is caused by some underlying medical condition, and that medical condition is Alzheimer's disease. It is the most common type called dementia, but there are dozens of different types of dementia. So I want to walk you very quickly through normal age-related changes and something that is possibly a symptom of dementia to be worried about. As I mentioned, remembering names, struggling to find words, or maybe losing keys, pens, right? You name it. Misplacing objects more often, a normal age-related change to our memory as we age. What's not normal? That would be, you know, if my husband forgot my name, right? One of you forgetting my name is not a big problem, but somebody that's very close to me forgetting my name would be, you know, a memory that is more significant, memory loss that is more significant. Becoming lost in a familiar place, forgetting the function of an object, right? It's one thing to forget your car keys or to not remember momentarily where I set those down. It's another thing altogether to be holding them or to be walking to the car and not recognizing this is the object that I need to use to get into that car or to get it started. As I mentioned, our thinking does change. We are slower to learn new information. We have those changes to our attention and our focus and our concentration, nothing to worry about. But when we begin to struggle with tasks that we used to be good at, right? Planning, sequencing, following a recipe, for example, right? If you used to be very handy in the kitchen and you could follow a new recipe and now you're struggling, what's the order in which I'm supposed to do these things? That would be something to worry about. If you were never good at following a recipe, then not being good at it now is not something to worry about, right? It's about experiencing a change from what's normal and what's baseline for you. Becoming unable to learn something new is a concern, right? It will take us longer to learn a new piece of technology, to learn to play a new instrument in mid or later life, but we can still learn these things. It's just going to take a lot more work. If the brain is really not able to retain new information, this is something to be concerned about. Physical changes, I think most of us are pretty familiar with all of the normal age-related changes, right? Sensory changes, vision, hearing, sense of smell might change physically, right? We are less strong, less flexible, but some changes to be mindful of that are not normal age-related changes. When there's changes in the person's field of vision, our peripheral field of vision shrinks a bit as we get older. Our ability to see beyond, you know, a couple feet in front of us, that becomes more narrow naturally as we age. But in the symptoms of dementia, we will see a significant narrowing of a person's field of vision. That's not a normal age-related change. Along with that, we tend to see lots of difficulty with balance and falls. Falls are a significant risk for all of us, but a notable risk for people with dementia. And finally, there are behavioral changes in dementia. Behavior changes are not to be expected as we age. For better or for worse, our personality kind of remains stable throughout our lives, right? Who you are now, speaking very broadly in terms of a generally optimistic, pleasant, easygoing kind of a person. Whereas if you're more type A or more rigid, right? That's kind of probably been pretty stable throughout most of your life. When we see major changes in a person's mood or personality, it is something to be concerned about. It doesn't mean it's dementia, but it means something is changing, something that we want to talk with the doctor about. Difficulty getting new tasks started, becoming socially withdrawn. You will notice a lot of that also looks like clinical depression. Right? Depression and dementia overlap and look a lot like each other, and they frequently coexist, actually. So who's at risk of developing dementia? The short answer is all of us, right? The older we get, the more likely we are to develop Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. It is the primary risk factor for dementia. 1 in 9 people over age 65 is living with dementia in the United States, is big numbers. Being female puts you at higher risk. Having inherited a particular genetic mutation is a rare type of Alzheimer's disease that is caused by a genetic mutation, but there are other genes that increase a person's risk of what we call normal onset, meaning over age 65 onset types of the disease. But your family history plays much more of a role. I mean, a parent or a sibling who has or had some form of dementia increases your personal risk. But in most cases, dementia is not usually an inherited condition. You inherit risk, but not actually the condition. These other health conditions, however, hypertension, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes, these can be inherited and they are associated with a higher risk. So that's what we focus on. When we talk about keeping your brain healthy, we're talking about managing these health conditions, either managing your risk of developing them or keeping them under control if you have them. Also, as I mentioned, hearing loss. Living with untreated hearing loss for long periods of time is associated with an increased risk of dementia. Having fewer years of formal education or having sustained a head trauma that resulted in a concussion. These are 2 conditions, 2 circumstances that increase a person's risk of developing dementia. All of this is risk, right? None of this is deterministic. So none of these conditions will guarantee that a person is going to get Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. Down syndrome is sort of one exception. Individuals with Down syndrome have exceptionally high rates of Alzheimer's disease. And in fact, some researchers will tell you every person with Down syndrome will develop Alzheimer's disease if they live long enough into their 40s or 50s. This is due to a particular marker associated with one of the proteins involved in Alzheimer's disease that's on the 21st chromosome. And people with Down syndrome have 3 copies of the 21st chromosome. So it is a very common disease that we see in those folks. But we really don't yet know how to prevent Alzheimer's disease. You will notice this talk was not called preventing Alzheimer's, preventing dementia. It's about maintaining your brain health. So we've got lots of research, lots of evidence out there, but nothing yet that we know that has been validated through large scale quality research that tells us that if you do X, Y, Z, you will not get Alzheimer's or another type of dementia, or that it will stop or reverse the symptoms. So let's focus on what we do know. The Mediterranean diet in particular. And by the way, feel free to be submitting questions as we go. I know I'm shooting a lot of information at you, so feel free to put questions in chat and we can look at those later. The Mediterranean diet has been studied extensively. This is not one specific diet, it's sort of a general style of eating that is consistent with the cultures of the people who live around the Mediterranean. So it is a diet that is high in lots of vegetables, lots of the proteins come primarily through legumes and fish sources rather than land-based animals and dairy and processed food and processed fats. Lots of fruit. Whole grains and cereals, as I mentioned, fish and olive oil in particular, but sort of broadly any sort of plant-based fat is a good brain healthy fat. The heart healthy diets of the 1990s and the early 2000s turns out, while maybe good for our cardiovascular health, are probably very poor for our brain health. Our brains need fat, but they need good fat. Right? And when I say good fat, I'm talking primarily about fat that comes from plants, right? Olives and nuts and seeds and what else? Coconuts are sort of, there's saturated fat in coconut, so that's kind of a mixed bag there. Avocado, I knew there was another big one I was missing. Moderate amounts of alcohol are good for your brain. Actually, the research shows that pretty clearly, right? And I know the question on everyone's mind. So what's moderate, right? That's different for every person. I'm not going to give you that answer. For some people, 0 alcohol is the right amount, right? So I'm certainly not recommending that anybody start drinking alcohol if you don't already, but if you enjoy it, enjoying it in moderation with food appears to be pretty good for your brain health. So keeping those amounts of saturated fats, low amounts of dairy, meat, including poultry, is associated with better brain health. And of course, staying well hydrated. This is really important as we get older. We're losing our thirst sensors. Part of some of those normal brain changes that happen as we get older. One of them is that it becomes easier to become dehydrated because you don't have a sense that you're thirsty. So if anybody has a glass of water with them right now, here's your prompt. Take a drink. I'm going to do it too. Good. I like to see that. Okay. Staying cognitively active. Here we are on Zoom, talking about brain health, talking to each other, figuring out how all these panels and gallery views and all of this works. This is so good for our brain, at least when it comes to being cognitively challenged. So the whole theory behind why staying cognitively active is good for your brain health and why it may reduce the risk of developing dementia is an interesting one. The theory is called cognitive reserve. That is to say, there's not really a belief out there in the research community that doing crossword puzzles, playing music, learning a new language, all of these things, those things don't prevent us from developing the pathology of Alzheimer's disease, for example. But what they do is they create new neural pathways, new connections between our brain cells. Every time you have a new experience, you learn something new, you meet a new person, you smell a new smell, right? Whatever it might be, your brain creates a new neural pathway. And so effectively what you're doing is creating more workarounds for your brain should it experience some kind of damage down the road, right? Including a pathology such as Alzheimer's disease or any other form of dementia. So it's all good for your brain. It all comes down to novelty, really, having new experiences, new challenges. That's one of our great dilemmas here, living in the pandemic, is every day is starting to kind of feel the same to a lot of us. So finding ways to incorporate new experiences and challenges into your daily life is really worthwhile. Reading, learning new things, learning a new skill. You don't need to become fluent in a new language, but pick up a word here and there, right? That's good for your brain. Take classes, join discussion groups, get involved with your community. I loved hearing about that. Do games, puzzles. Music is probably one of the most effective and easy to access forms of cognitive activity that we have. Listening to it, singing along to it, or playing it if you have access to that. Staying socially engaged. I'll be really curious to see where the research ends up on, how does this count? Being in Zoom meetings and doing Zoom happy hours and FaceTimes with our grandkids, does that count as social engagement? I should think so, but I'm sure it's limited. But humans are primates and we are wired for connectivity. It's one of the great dilemmas of all this video conferencing that we're doing. We're never really making eye contact with each other, and that's hard. It's hard for our brains. So doing what you can safely, right, to stay socially engaged is critically important. This first point, I think, is a very interesting one. What the research finds is that there's a relationship between people as we age. If we stay more socially active, we tend to have better other health behaviors that are associated with brain health. So that is to say, peer pressure as we get older is positive. If you're involved with friends and social activities, you tend to eat more healthy, you do more cognitively stimulating things, you get more exercise, right? All of those things. People who are engaging in regular social activity appear to be protected. So very interesting. I am just noticing I seem to be missing a slide here, and I'm going to apologize for that. I'm going to go back here and talk about physical activity. I'm not sure what happened to my slide deck here, or if I clicked through it too fast and I didn't see it. I apologize if I did. But physical activity is also really important. And actually the thing where the lifestyle intervention, the thing we can do that there's the most research behind it to tell us it is good for your brain. This will not be a surprise to any of you, right? The federal guidelines for getting exercise are 150 minutes per week of aerobic activity and 2 sessions of strength training or resistance training per week. That is a broad federal guideline. It doesn't apply, to every individual person, but it's a good thing to aim for. And what it does, of course, it's good for your cardiovascular system, and that keeps good blood flowing to your brain. It helps us sleep better. It helps us manage our mental health conditions. But mostly when it comes to brain health, it's actually increasing the amount of sort of connectivity between our brain cells too. So I apologize for not having the slide to accompany that, but that is an important one. Don't take that as a dismissal or an excuse not to exercise. It is really important. And sleep, right? Sleep, I think, when asked, what do you think is the most important thing people should be doing? I always say focusing on sleep. And so another reason I have concerns about all of this screen time that we're all getting these days, it's probably pretty disruptive to our sleep, something we definitely want to work on. There is a large and growing body of research out there that shows us that a lack of deep sleep may increase a person's risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. That one of the functions of stage 4 and 5 sleep, the very deepest stages of sleep that come after the REM stage, one of the primary functions there is sort of clearing stuff out of the brain and elsewhere in the body as well. So the thinking there is that this may be one of the body's normal ways of eliminating some of the naturally occurring proteins that are accumulating in the brains of people living with Alzheimer's disease. So there's the sort of research part of it, but there's also just the common sense part of it. Sleep is foundational to all this other stuff I've been talking about, right? If you're tired, you're not going to be able to get enough exercise. You don't have the energy to shop and prepare healthy meals. You don't feel like hanging out with people or doing cognitively stimulating activities, right? This is really where all the kind of linchpin, where all the rest of it sort of connects. So sleep is essentially important, and we all know how our memory and our thinking is that just one night after not getting a good night's sleep. So long term, it's obvious. Our sleep needs, it is a common myth that older people don't need as much sleep. Not true. The National Sleep Foundation and experts everywhere will tell you that older adults, meaning 65 and older, need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep, just like younger adults do. Our need for sleep doesn't change, but the way we sleep absolutely changes. You're probably not going to get 7 to 9 hours in a row the way that you could have when you were younger. That's nothing to worry about. We just want to get through, 4 or 5 complete sleep cycles in the course of a night. That's essential for overall health, but specifically our brain health. So just a couple very brief, simple tips on sleep hygiene, because I always get the questions. I just put it in here, right? Establishing a routine related to bedtime and morning time, wake times. Training your brain for sleep means, beds and bedrooms should be used for only a couple of very limited purposes, right? Don't work in your bed. Don't take phone calls in your bed, right? Bedrooms are for sleeping. So train your brain that way. Get stuff that's not associated with that away from your room, right? Or certainly from your nightstand, but probably out of your whole room if possible. Keep the room comfortable. This could be temperature, sheets, right? The clothes that you wear. Limiting naps. Naps are fine, but if they are becoming disruptive to your sleep cycle, you want to address that. Changing patterns of caffeine and alcohol consumption because they frequently disrupt sleep. And of course, there it is again, exercise. Exercise and sleep quality are very closely associated. So if you're concerned based on any of these things that I've been talking about, please don't panic. There's lots of other things, many other medical conditions can cause changes to our memory and our thinking. You could be taking a medication that's affecting you. You could have a low grade or clinical depression that would be mimicking some of these symptoms, or experiencing illness. Simple things like a cold or a urinary tract infection for a lot of people will cause memory and cognitive changes that really mimic the symptoms of dementia. So talk with your doctor, talk with other people, right? I'm noticing some changes in myself. What do you think? Do you think I should be worried? We just don't talk enough about memory changes and cognitive changes. There's a lot of stigma around this, and there's no reason for anyone to be embarrassed or ashamed of memory problems. Seek out memory screening, talk to your doctor about diagnosis. We can connect you to resources for that if you need it. I provided here just the names and websites of a couple of sources for good, meaning quality, unbiased disease information if you're interested in learning more. I can send, if anybody wants this list, I'm happy to send it on. This is us at Alzheimer's San Diego, a whole range of free supports and services. We are a local nonprofit organization headquartered in Kearny Mesa, but serving people anywhere who live in San Diego County or care for somebody in San Diego County who's affected by any kind of memory loss diagnosis or not. I'll just leave it at that, but know that we're here for you. If you have questions, if you know somebody who's in need of support, there's no formal sort of intake process. It's a very simple, we're a simple organization to access, and we're here for you. Again, everything is free and available to anybody. And if you're looking for opportunities to get involved in your local community, we're a great, we can be a great outlet for that too. Lots of volunteer opportunities through Alzheimer's San Diego. So you can get information about us through our website. You can call us, email us, live chat us. Dick and Jim know how to reach me. If you need anything, we're here for you. So with that, I'll wrap up and see if there's been any questions.
Thank you very much, Amy. That was great. Let's see, do we have the chat thing going?
Yes, I see a question here. Does a childhood skull fracture with unconsciousness also raise your risk? So yes, it's not the skull fracture itself, but the fact that the person lost consciousness probably would be an indicator of an increased risk, specifically if there was concussion. Concussion is the condition that's been studied most closely. I would imagine with a skull fracture and a loss of consciousness, there was probably also concussion in that situation. That is the condition that specifically has been linked to several types of dementia. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, is a particular type of dementia that a lot of professional athletes and veterans who've had head trauma in combat. CTE is a particular type of dementia that is clearly correlated with head injury. Anything else? You're welcome to ask questions out loud too. You all can control the meeting however you like, but I'm happy to take them.
We've got, do we need to get into gallery view or so to see? Yeah.
I have a question here. Does reading in bed before going to sleep affect your ability to reach deep sleep? This is a topic of much debate in my own household. I'm a paper reader and my husband reads on a tablet. I'm just a paper reader, not because I think tablets are bad for your brain. I like paper books. But yeah, there is plenty of evidence that looking at backlit screens, blue light, before trying to go to sleep will affect the quality of your sleep, your ability to get into and stay into those deepest stages of sleep. But there are workarounds. There's tools for this. Most tablets and phones and computers and these devices have ways to lower the amount of blue light that's coming through the screen. They call it, I'm forgetting the word for it. See, here we go. Each device has its own sort of name for this, but there's a setting you can switch on that kind of changes the light. So if you're looking at you're taking in less of that blue light directly, then it's better. But absolutely, I mean, the general recommendation is about an hour or so before you want to be going to sleep to stop looking at screens, if possible. Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple of people who are supposed to be monitoring the attendees. See if you've got anybody raising your hand. We'll call on you. You can also do it by chat, as Amy has been encouraging. So anybody else?
Oh, there was a follow-up question there, right? Are books themselves okay? Yeah, there's no reason that, you know, reading or if it's a relaxing activity. I mean, that's the key. If you find reading to be a soothing and relaxing activity, then it's a wonderful thing to do before bed. The act of reading is not something that's disruptive to the sleep cycle. Television, yeah, so the TV falls into that category of those lights that we want to be avoiding. So not watching television for about an hour before you want to go to sleep is generally what's recommended. I mean, that's a like radical change in a lot of people's lives, right? Turn off the TV a full hour before you want to go to sleep. That would take some work for a lot of people. They call this sleep hygiene, right? In the same way that we take care of our oral hygiene, we brush and floss, we make sure our oral health is good. Sleep hygiene is all of the activities that help us make sure our sleep is good. Yeah, the National Sleep Foundation is a great resource for a lot of good tips on this. Oh, I can certainly pull the.
There you go. That's good.
Great. Anything else?
Let's see here. Is anybody else wants to ask a question?
I don't see any other hands up. So we are here. If you have more, if questions do come up for you, please don't hesitate to reach out. There's no silly or insignificant questions. Our social workers that is their job. They're there Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, to take questions, connect you to a resource, help you find some research on something if you're looking for it. Please don't hesitate.
Well, Amy, it was a wonderful presentation. We always enjoy having you, and today's was exceptionally outstanding. So thank you very, very much for participating, for giving me a great thing, and we'll be back to another topic next year or so.
Sounds great. I'll look forward to it.
All right. Thank you all. All right. With that, we're going to sign off. Thank you all for attending today. Excellent meeting, and we'll have this posted to YouTube. I'll have Amy's presentation posted to YouTube in a few days. And again, I want to thank everybody for their participation. Thank the board for their fine work. Thank Cynthia and Greg for their presentations. And we'll be talking to you next month. With that, we'll sign off. Thank you all.